Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome back. This is Dave Keller with StockCharts.com here from our headquarters in Redmond, Washington. Thanks again for joining us today on The Final Bar. I want to welcome on my guest, Steve Strazza. He's an analyst at AllStarCharts.com. Steve, thanks so much for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me.
You very kindly sent 4 charts ahead of time. I'd love to quickly go through these 4 and just get us a sense of what you're seeing. The first one was on precious metals versus commodities.
Yes. So, like you were alluding to earlier in the show, gold is one of the more attractive long-term charts right now, as is silver. So, during a period like this, or an environment where the equity market isn't exactly trending, we're just kind of chopping and moving sideways, and have been, since January of 18 now. You can look elsewhere. In this case, the commodities market. For markets that are trending, and right now that's precious metals.
Very interesting, and it's fascinating. The momentum has spiked up so quickly on that ratio just recently, right?
Yeah, I mean, we got two overbought readings, two separate overbought readings since prices started to break out of this long-term consolidation in 2018. And really what that's showing is that, buyers are becoming more aggressive. And even though this is just comparing and looking at the trend relative to equal weight commodities, which aren't a very strong, it's not a very good looking chart on an absolute basis right now, equal weight commodities. But still, when you look at that breakout, there's clearly something going on. And what that tells me is this is probably a secular trend, or the start of a new secular trend, and that within the commodity complex, you want to be in precious metals.
Very interesting. So on those lines, the second chart you sent us was a long-term chart on gold. So I did not mean to scoop your beautiful take here on gold, but talk us through. What are you seeing here?
No, so this is just gold in US dollars, the top chart, and this is based since 2013 and built out a really nice consolidation. And we recently resolved higher above that 1400, say 1375, 1400 level.
Right.
And right now we're kind of digesting the gains off of May's low. We picked up about 20%, and we're kind of moving sideways right now. And I think that the trade has a lot more room. If you look at it in other currencies, scrolling down here, we already made new highs. Gold already made new highs in other non-US dollar currencies. So I have it here in yen, Aussie dollar, and then euro. And I think US dollar is going to be next. I think we're actually going to continue trending higher. It could take a year or two, but I think we'll eventually take out those highs. So I think this is a trade that long-term investors could really participate in, and it's not too late to enter.
It's a great lesson to look at gold, not just in US dollars, but maybe in other currencies, see what sort of confirmation. That's really interesting. This third chart was on gold to silver ratio.
Right. This one's really important. So the story here is, the bottom line is that when gold and silver are in uptrends, or when precious metals are in a bull market, silver is the higher beta way to play the trend. So
Right.
what you see is investors pile into silver, and silver actually moves higher or trends higher at a faster rate than gold. So you have this dynamic where the gold to silver ratio actually rolls over and trends lower, which is highlighted. Those periods are highlighted by green in this chart. And what you see is that when the gold to silver ratio is moving lower, silver is outperforming gold, but both precious metals, silver and gold, will be normally trending higher on an absolute basis.
And that is an expert illustration of the annotation platform on StockCharts. Kudos for that, Steve. Well done. And then your final chart is another one on the silver to gold ratio. What are you seeing here?
So this is just a zoomed in version and inverted version of the previous gold to silver ratio. So this is silver to gold. We have gold in the denominator now. And what this is showing is we have a potential failed breakdown, which could result in a very fast move higher in both precious metals. So I think if we get that failed breakdown in this ratio and silver starts to outperform gold, that's going to be a signal to investors, and it's probably going to be happening in an environment where both precious metals are moving higher, and you could be invested in either one. It's just silver is going to give you more beta.
There's such a great behavioral lesson there, Steve, on inverting the chart. And we've talked about it on the show before about about how you try to disconnect from a preconceived bias, right? And just by inverting it, you're sort of addressing it from a different perspective. That's really, really well done.
I have to do it
Yeah,
because I see things differently. When I
that's
invert the
right.
chart, it's yeah, I have a bullish bias. So a lot of times when I'm looking for shorts, I have to invert those charts.
So we're almost out of time. I'd love just one final question if we could. Going back to your weekly chart on gold, and I mentioned earlier, it's one of the better long-term setups, and I think your chart sort of backs that up very well. My question is, what would you see that would convince you otherwise, right? What would you see on this long-term chart of gold that would tell you, you know what, it actually isn't a good long-term play anymore, or maybe I need to revisit that? Is there any particular signal break or something that you would look for?
I have to be honest, it's not so much the absolute price chart of gold that
Okay,
I'm concerned with, to make sure that this is actually a real new structural bull market. It's other things like outperformance from the miners over spot gold,
got it.
outperformance of silver over gold, like we just talked about. The U.S. dollar, I don't want to see continuing higher. I'd like to see it roll over here,
Sure.
DXY. So it's things like that that I'm really looking at. As long as gold continues to, just kind of march higher on an absolute basis, I think we're fine. But if it does break back below that 1380 or 1400 level, it would invalidate my thesis.
Steve, that was a fantastic take on the metals. Thanks so much for sharing your thought with us, and thanks for coming on the show. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me on, Dave.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's Steve Strazza from All Star Charts. This is a great take on precious metals. Knows his stuff, and I love the illustration of gold versus silver. Just seeing it this way visually with shading in the background, it's just such a simple visual cue, but helps you make sense of what we're seeing. That's really, really well done. I hope you found that to be time well spent.